Good evening and welcome to the Public Safety Commission meeting this Monday, July 22nd, 2024. I'd like to do a call to order. Let's do a roll call, starting with Brian.
Brian Cameron, here.
Joe Chilko.
Norma Citron.
G. Patel.
And Sharon Boucher. Thank you. Jay, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Jay. May I call for a motion to approve the agenda for this evening?
Do we want to rearrange the agenda or do we have all the participants here?
Mike is going to do.
Oh, Mike's going to do. Okay.
Yep.
Then yes, I move that we approve the agenda.
I second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And may I have approval of the minutes from April 29th, 2024?
Yes. I will move for that.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All right. Brian, any announcements or?
No, not this evening.
Joe?
No, not at this time, thanks.
Not at this time.
Okay, thank you. And I don't see any cards, so we're going to move right on to the student commissioner.
Elections?
How would you like us to proceed on that? Okay, we'll come back to that as well. Then I'm going to start with Officer Cody Sturgis. Welcome.
Good evening. I'm Officer Sturgis with the CHP West Valley Area Office. I've been with the office for about 3 years, and I'll be filling in for Officer Casey Ramstead, who's usually here. So I want to provide an update on crashes in the Calabasas area as well as our recent maximum enforcement period. So for April of 2024, there were 21 total crashes. 1 was a fatal accident, 9 were injury accidents, 11 were property damage only, and 3 of those were hit and runs, and 3 were DUI-involved crashes. In comparison to April 2023, there were 16 total crashes, 8 with injuries, 8 with property damage only, 2 of which were hit and runs, and 2 of which were DUI-involved crashes. For May of 2024, there were a total of 21 reported crashes, 10 with injuries, 11 with property damage only, and 5 of those were hit and run crashes. 4 were DUI crashes. For May of 2023, there were 22 total crashes, 11 injury and 11 property damage only. 3 were hit and runs, and 3 were DUI. For June of 2024, there were 14 reported crashes, 10 with injuries, 4 property damage only. 2 of those were hit and runs, and there were no DUI crashes. For June of 23, there were 13 total crashes. 1 was a fatal crash, 3 with injuries, 9 property damage only, and 1 was a hit and run, and 1 was a DUI. And then how that compares to, say, a busier portion of the valleys, such as the interchange, the 405 and the 101. So on April 24, there were 63 crashes compared to 21 reported in the Calabasas area. In May of 24, there were 55 crashes compared to 21 reported crashes in the Calabasas area. And for June of 24, there were 50 crashes compared to 14 reported crashes in the Calabasas area. And then moving on to our maximum enforcement period that we recently had, that was from the 3rd of July to the 7th of July. 650 citations were issued in the valley, and that includes the Malibu Canyons as well as PCH. 356 of those citations were for 100 miles an hour or less, 11 were for over 100, and 11 were for unsafe lane changes and turning movements. 4 were for following too close. 59 were for distracted driving. 36 were for other crash factors, such as running a stop sign or crossing double yellow lines. 17 seatbelt citations were issued, and 156 other citations were issued. 134 warnings were given. 28 vehicles were stored or impounded, and 16 DUI drivers were arrested, and there were 0 fatal crashes during this period. As for the Calabasas area, during this maximum enforcement period, a total of 46 citations were issued. And then some general information. For this reporting period, crashes were generally caused by unsafe speed for conditions. So that's say you're driving too fast, a car in front of you stops, you're not able to brake in time, and you rear-end the vehicle ahead of you. That's probably most of the crashes during this reporting period. Then unsafe turning movements as well. Usually those are similar action where they're either not paying attention, distracted driving, car suddenly stops, they swerve and crash into other vehicles. Unsafe lane changes were also a cause, as well as DUI driving. As far as injuries, when I spoke about injuries for crashes, those refer to anything that's minor, moderate, or major. Most of the injuries for these crashes were minor, so that was complaint of pain or minor abrasions and lacerations. And as far as the main traffic issue we see probably is the southbound 101 between Lost Hills Road and LA city limits. It tends to back up during prime time hours, and it tends to stay that way. We've been enforcing in that area, looking for distracted drivers to try and speed that up. And then as far as the wildlife crossing project, hasn't had a significant impact on traffic in the area. They expect late 2025, early 2026 completion. They're currently in stage 1, and stage 2 should begin in 2025. And that's all I have. Do you have any questions?
Ryan?
Of course. A couple of questions. Thank you for the report. I like that. The first question, when was the maximum enforcement period?
That was from July 3rd to July 7th, so it's kind of the travel day before and then the end of the weekend.
Okay. And when you talk about hit and run, does that imply that the offender got away?
No, not necessarily. So that when I say hit and run, it means there's a hit and run driver involved in the accident. So if someone on scene that was involved in the crash is able to provide a license plate number or something we can follow up on, we can pursue that individual, and we can get an address from their license plate, and then we're able to do follow-up on it, or even contact them by telephone. So it doesn't mean they got away with the hit and run. That's just marked as a hit and run crash. But anytime we get follow-up information, we follow every lead we can.
So is there a detective bureau within the station that gathers that information? And
For more serious, like felonious hit and runs, yes, but for the most part, the officers do their own investigation work on those.
okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Joe?
Thank you, and thank you for the report. I like the fact that you gave us something to compare it to. However, the comparison at the 405 interchange, there's a lot of working parts there. There are all kinds of different traffic converging all over the place. You did mention the grade on Calabasas as being problematic. But you led into a question that I had, which was, how does this compare to Agoura Hills and to Westlake, which are more similar to the Calabasas situation, with the exception of the grade that goes up? So do they have similar numbers?
So I do not have those statistics with me now,
Okay.
but I can follow up with you on that, and I can get that information.
Yeah,
for you.
next time, yeah.
Yeah.
I like to
So-
compare, apples to as close an apple as you can get. And I think you're thinking in the same direction as what I am when you're talking about, okay, if you think this is bad. So when I'm looking at these, I see that, you know, not a lot of changes month to month from year to year. And it seems to suggest that there are some times during the year when there are going to be more accidents than other times. So what was going on in April apparently wasn't happening in June, or that's a possibility one way or the other. What should people be looking out for? I mean, it's always a good idea to pay attention, but are there particular times of the year that are more dangerous than other times?
It seems like that drop-off in June, that's my understanding when school is out. So I think that's probably one of the biggest changes, is the difference. Because there's a lot of parents taking their kids to school. There's a lot more cars, I think, out on the road when children are in school versus out of school.
Right. And having been a parent in Calabasas, I know what it's like. You're rushing in the morning to get the kids to school, to get to your job. So you probably are more distracted than you would be. So it's a good idea to pay attention during those particular times. I also had the same question that Brian had in terms of DUI drivers, and how you basically follow up on those types of things. So you've given us some indication. Do you have any kind of numbers that would indicate percentage-wise how many you're able to run down? And
I can see if I can obtain that data.
yeah,
Because as far as when we run the stats, it just marks a crash as a hit-and-run crash.
right.
So in order to figure out the answer to that, I would have to read that report to see if they found the driver.
Sure.
Because when they mark it hit and run, it could mean that it was hit and run, no follow-up, meaning no license plate was obtained. They just said a vehicle hit me. I have no idea what hit me.
Right.
And in that case, it's marked as a hit and run, but there's nothing we could do to go further. But if they get a partial plate or anything like that, we try everything we can to locate that person and contact them and then obtain the information from them, as well as charge them if necessary.
The other thing that isn't here is the time of these offenses. Whether, you know, I mean, are the DUIs more happening at night? Are they happening during the day? You know, to give people a sense of, again, you know, who's on the road at what times and when they need to be paying attention the most. Do you have any ideas?
So I would say surprisingly, what would surprise most people is that this is all times of the day. Any shift, our morning shift at 5 a.m., we have DUI crashes at 5 in the morning out of the gate. We have DUI crashes in the afternoon, and we have DUI crashes at night. So I think that would surprise most people as it's not just something that's happening at night. I've been on a shift where we're working, say, from 12:45 to 10:15, and we've had, just in the Valley, 4 DUI crashes in the afternoon on a weekday. So this is a problem that can be any time of the day. It's not necessarily at night. At night, predominant enforcement is on DUI drivers because traffic is clear. They can observe the indicators that suggest someone is driving under the influence. During the day, it's a little different because you have lots of crashes we're responding to and other calls.
So if you're driving and you see somebody that's driving erratically and you want to report it, is 911 the number you should be calling?
Yes, you can call 911 and report it, especially if you see a DUI driver. They'll give you a safety admonishment, tell you not to follow, just due to safety. But if you could provide a license plate description of the vehicle, it gets broadcast officers in the field and they're able to try and locate the vehicle.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, sir.
Thanks, Joe. Norma?
I have nothing. Thank you for your service.
Oh, thank you.
Jay?
Yeah, thank you for the report. I just have one quick question. I'm not sure if you can answer it, but it's about the wildlife crossing. Do you anticipate there being any time soon? I know a few months ago they had more lane closures kind of during the night throughout specific times of the day. Do you anticipate there being more lane closures of that caliber throughout the following months, like throughout the school year, in terms of as it moves into stage 2 beginning of next year. I'm not sure how that'll affect traffic, and if you can comment on that.
So I'm not sure, because that's going to be under Caltrans. So Caltrans would know the schedule more for that, but I can contact them, reach out to them, and get that information for you.
Thank you.
No other questions? Okay.
Sorry.
Oh, well.
First off, you indicated that there were, during this maximum enforcement period, there were 11 tickets for doing over 100 miles an hour?
Yes.
Was that on the freeway, on surface streets, or?
So those stats are broken down just as a general for our area. So could be anywhere in our area.
Okay.
So they're not necessarily specific, but usually to get up to that speed, you'd probably be on the freeway to do that, or possibly PCH. But other than that, a canyon road, I don't think you could get that fast without crashing.
No, probably not. And then finally, I noticed you have a sash on your badge indicating a loss in the department, or do you have any information about that?
There was an officer that lost his life. He was a motorcycle officer up north in the Sacramento area. So because that officer is in California, we wear it in honor of him
Okay. Sorry
until
for your
he's
loss.
been laid to rest, yes.
Okay.
Thank you very much. I have no other questions, and I want to wish you a nice summer, and hopefully it's relatively free of any activity out there for you, and be safe on the road.
Yeah, thank you. And if those questions that you had I wasn't able to answer, you can contact me at my email. I can have that ready for you, so you can send those to me, and I can work on giving you those answers.
Sure, that's great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Do you want to go?
Sure will. On behalf of Mason DiMatteo of the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, I am going to present to the commissioners the June of 2024 report. In June of 2024, we had one assault, one residential burglary, a total of 10 larceny thefts, including 3 grand thefts, which were $950 or greater, 2 vehicle burglaries, 2 unlocked vehicles, and that's a point for everybody is to, lock your car. If it's unlocked, it's open territory. 3 petty thefts, and then 3 grand theft autos, for a total of 15 Part 1 crimes. There was also 7 domestic violence misdemeanors and 1 swatting call. And everybody know what a swatting call is. Swatting call is a prank call, gets first responders out and possibly hurt or kill somebody there. So those are horrible. Getting into the noteworthy incidents for the city of Calabasas on the next page. A Calabasas resident was arrested for domestic violence at 2300 block of Mulholland Highway. An Oxnard resident was arrested for assault using personal weapons likely to produce great bodily injury on Stokes Canyon. A Palisades resident was arrested for misdemeanor domestic violence on Calabasas Road. North Hills resident was cited for driving while unlicensed at a Civic Center in Calabasas Road. Pomona resident was arrested for assault with a deadly weapon on Agoura Road. Calabasas resident was arrested for felony domestic violence on Lost Springs Drive. Calabasas resident was arrested for felony domestic violence making criminal threats on Park Monte Nord. And finally, a Van Nuys resident was arrested for possession of controlled substance and trespassing within a gated community on Calle Serrano. One comment is you'll notice that we have residents outside the city getting arrested here. And one thing I would tell you with the flock cameras that we have, last month in June we had roughly 4 million license plates read with our 18 cameras. So there's a lot of cars driving in and out of Calabasas with over 1,000 hot plate hits. So we have a lot of cars driving in and out of the city, not just all residents. I wish I could answer any questions the commissioners have. I could, if you have any, we could certainly take them down and forward them to Deputy DiMatteo if you'd like.
Okay, I just have a couple of things regarding safety around the city. I noticed that the residential burglaries are up a little bit, 35 compared to 27 the year before or something of that nature. I just want people to be aware. One of the trends that we have seen in the city a couple of times now is the cameras in the bushes watching the homes. So I encourage our residents to, if they have bushes near their front door or around their garage, just look around in the bushes and make sure that there's nothing there. But that's a warning. And I also say, as you started with your cars, don't leave stuff visible, lock them. It's an invitation to do that. Make sure that the bushes around your house are cut back. If you leave, have your mail forwarded. Don't let newspapers pile up in the driveway during these summer months while you're away. And do not advertise on social media that you're away, because that opens up an opportunity as well. And there's just, for all of us, and I've said it many times, we've got to take care of ourselves and help support all those that are trying to help us, from law enforcement, from fire, but be aware, especially in the summer months.
I have one thing to add. I know that Deputy DiMatteo also reminds everyone, you can call the Sheriff's Department if you're going to be on vacation, and they can arrange to have a drive-by.
Yes, very much.
That's right.
Yep.
Good.
And I think that's it.
If I may piggyback on that, good point, Norma. That was exactly going to be mine. The other thing to consider is that because a lot of people are on vacation, don't post pictures on social media saying, hey, I'm having a great time in someplace else other than my house, because that's also something that criminals look for.
It's an invitation.
Absolutely.
Yep, thank you.
Good point.
Thank you for that report.
Thank you.
And with that, I'm going to go over to Assistant Fire Chief Drew Smith. We haven't got you. Welcome.
Welcome. Well, thank you for having me. It's nice to see everybody. And just want to start with by saying thank you to the City of Calabasas for all your support to the Los Angeles County Fire Department. We love it. So thank you. So your fire family's doing great. Once again, appreciate the support, and combining the data for April, May, and June, I didn't see anything that was out of line at all. As we do see as we go through this, that some of the run volume does go up, but that's complements when summertime comes, so that's all normal. So lumping the 3 months together, we did have 10 fires, and I'll talk to that, and that wasn't abnormal, and nothing was malicious. There was some accidental. We did have 2 that were, I will say, vegetation fires, not brush fires, because there is a difference. So there was nothing malicious there. They're both under 1/10 of an acre, roadside type of fires, nothing malicious at all. So this time of year, quick action, really easy to control those type of wildland fires in the months of April, May, and June within the area, unless there's some weather anomaly, and that wasn't the case for this. However, we did have 4 structure fires, not big structure fires, just accidental in nature. One was an attic fire, and that was the 2600 block and I believe it was on Canese. And that was an attic fire, so still to be determined, but just your firefighters took quick action on that, but did cause some significant damage to the home, but it could have been significantly worse based upon time of day. We did have 2 shed fires and 1 indoor fire where rubber gloves were left on a light fixture. And the reason I bring that up is because accidents happen. And so we think you get multitask, you set something down, you have a heat source there, something as simple as that could lead to non-greater things, so it could lead to bigger fires. So it's just, I just want to give an example of sometimes when we get busy and we get complacent, or, you know, just sometimes those things happen. So I didn't see anything out of line with any of the fires that we did have. So we took a lot of quick action on that. So that's one benefit of being within the area. You have a very good complement of fire resources that are here to help. As far as the medical calls, we had a total of 398 medical calls, 89 of those which required advanced life support, 177 which required basic life support. We transported 266 patients to the appropriate receiving facilities for medical care. We had 10 hazardous condition calls. We had 0 hazmat calls. We had 76 service calls and 155 good intent calls. And one thing that we do see as things get busy as we transition into spring to summer is more people are out navigating their lives. And I really like good intent calls. And I know that I've said this before, is because people are observant and they're calling. So the right thing to do is to call 911 and let us come and evaluate what the appropriate action is for something. So if you see something, say something. So we like those good intent calls. And for the total of the 3 months, you had 55 snake calls. So I'm still gonna, I know all the cities compete for that around here, so I will see who's gonna win this year on the amount of snake calls that we have. So there has been some concern in the area about, hey, calling the fire department for snake calls. Call us. Don't take it into your own hands. Let us come out, and if we need to take any additional action with animal control, we're staffed 24/7. So if it is a threat, we will come and evaluate it. It doesn't mean it's always a rattlesnake. There's lots of critters out there. So, but please call us. So things to focus on as we transition. We just got past the 4th of July. We had a relatively safe 4th of July within the area, which is highly beneficial. So I'd like to thank all of our visitors, residents, and people that are in the area for doing the right thing, because we know that the fireworks are illegal out here. And so very appreciative of that. So the wildland fires have been, I can't say down in the area. We do have, during the summer, a lot of roadside fires or people that are out there, and those have been down, but throughout the county of Los Angeles has been very, very active, very active. With the activity that we have had, and I don't want to use the term high-risk days, because those are a different category, but when we have a abnormally dry stint of weather, we do move resources into the area to take those quick actions. So it doesn't need to be a red flag. We don't need to have a red flag or a fire weather watch warning for us to pre-position resources so we can have a more robust ground component to combat wildland fires. And we have done that over the past month and a half out here. So just because, as we know, this is the 2nd year in a row, we've had over 200% of normal rain. So the primary promoter of wildland fires is now that all the grass is brown. So it's highly receptive, and all fires start out small. And so with the abundance of grass, we heightened our awareness, and we pre-deploy those resources so we can have a more robust ground attack, and we have a very robust air attack component that comes to these wildland fires. Want to thank Westlake Village to Calabasas for everybody's participation in our defensible space. This is a great year, so I just don't want to say Calabasas is doing great. The whole COG is doing really good. The area is doing really good on their defensible space compliance. So we're, for Calabasas, in their re-inspection mode right now. So we do have some challenges out there, but we have had good compliance. And also, we've had good interaction with the public. I get that feedback from the engine companies, which the two that support Calabasas, of course, 125 off of Las Verdes, and right here in your backyard, Fire Station 68. So very pleased with the interactions that they've had with folks. Things that I would like the community to know is really start now with your plan. Ready, set, go. We need to start with ready, set, go. So if there's people that have been in the area for quite some time, they've probably seen fire frequency in the area. We don't want that complacency to set in. Well, it didn't happen last time. It wasn't that bad. Every fire is different. They all react differently based upon where they're at and what the weather's doing at the time. One thing also is we want people to go to credible sources for information. So we have, and we take it upon ourselves with the city of Calabasas for that unified messaging. So whether it's an OEM, Lost Hills Sheriff Station, Los Angeles County Fire, City of Calabasas, the citizens need to look at, or people need to look at, credible sites for valid information, and knowing your zone that you live in through Genesis as well, the Genesis Connect platform, which is also linkable with the city of Calabasas. So that is, they're new to the area or have maybe procrastinated a bit about it. Just encourage people to know what zone they're in so they can have that sources of information. And then also with that, with the unified messaging that we talk about, and how alerts go out and taking time. Any time that we do evacuations is based upon time. And there's only 3 components of that. And we either issue an evacuation order, warning, or shelter in place. And people need to understand the shelter in place component. That is when we have an advancing fire, that we don't have people have enough time to move out safely out of their area, that we would rather send fire resources by ground and by air to do the life safety and structure defense mission, rather than them with not enough time to evacuate an area and put themselves in a challenging position on a road system because they think they know best. When a lot of Calabasas has big water, big streets. They're doing their defensible space, they're doing their home hardening. I can say at my home, with those measures in place, I would be more secure in my home because I've done that, rather than trying to guess what the right thing to do is, navigating a road system when it looks like 2 in the morning, when it's actually 2 in the afternoon. It can get that dark. Those people that know, that have lived through wildland fires in the area. And some of those wildland fires that happen aren't conflagrations. They're routine daytime topography fires that happen. And with those outside the Santa Ana wind season, we're highly successful in combating those fires. So the compounding challenge that we face when people evacuate on their own sometimes creates challenges for fire resources and could put themselves in a very challenging position. So identify, ready, set, go. Everything on evacuations is based upon time. Time. And we need that reflex time when we identify how a fire is moving across the landscape on what is going to be potentially impacted and how we can move people out of the area with direction and get them to a certain place. I know I said a lot. I just want to be a few more minutes than you. That's all I was looking for. So that's all I have. Any questions for me?
Brian?
You mentioned that you've been recently pre-positioning resources. Can you elaborate on that process?
I can.
Okay.
So when we have, we'll just say, an enhanced fire weather component, we will staff our smaller Type 6 engines, which is our brush patrols. We'll also put extra personnel on our water tenders, and we'll also put a strike team, which has a battalion chief and 5 liked engines. So the engine just like that's at station 68 or 125, 5 of them come in a complement with a leader, and we pre-position them. And we usually put them in Agora at Fire Station 89 at the battalion headquarters, because then they can pivot along the 101 and have 3 routes of travel if we need to get them down to the coast. But we also have an air component that we enhance as well. You're welcome.
Joe.
We are completely in psych because you touched on about 3 of my questions. I'm very glad to hear that Calabasas and Agora Hills and Westlake are all doing well in terms of brush clearance and Zone 0, because that's what's important. But I know from driving around in the city that sometimes I still see things that I go, boy, you know, I wonder when they're getting to this house. And I know of a situation on Parkmore. Happens to be an empty lot now. It's one of the houses that burned. And unfortunately, they have not rebuilt, but they've let the lot go to seed. And there's a lot of brush in there. And I know that the resident beside it, that particular property, is concerned because they did theirs and now they have this nightmare beside. So we had opportunity to speak with Chief Dyer about it, and he suggested that the fire department will come out in that case and take a look and will remove the brush if the owner does not. And I was just wondering if you could give people the number again, where they can call in order to have that happen.
So, great question. So I'll back it up a little bit. So just because there was a house, now there's not, they're still required to do the defensible space, because the property lines that you have isn't just your property line. If your property line impacts within defensible space requirements, your property line could actually be, that you have to clear, could be closer to somebody else's house rather than your own. So if you have a piece of property and somebody else's property line and it's within that distance, you're required, you can't just do your own, you have to think about your neighbors as well if you're within that 100 to sometimes 200 foot clearance, if that makes sense. So with that being said, if they have a parcel of land that has not been done, there's a couple different elements. We come and inspect it, we do a second inspection, and then if it's still not done, it gets turned over to county agriculture, who then goes out and will clear the land for that. So the fire department won't do it. We do the citations, if you will, or the inspections, if you will. But then it gets turned over to county agriculture, who will actually come out and clear that property to make it in compliance. And I don't have the number in front of me, but I do know that we have it available, and I think it might be on yours. I know it's on our website for sure for a defensible space program, and gives a list on our website that spells it out for a list of numbers and the current code requirements.
And just to give people a ballpark idea of how long that process might take, the coming out a second time, then it gets handed over. I mean, we're in the middle of fire season. So, you know, like yesterday wouldn't be too soon for this to happen. So
correct. So, so we'll talk about compliance with people and us working with people. So we start on the inland side here in May 1st by the standard. Sometimes we extend that, and sometimes we do it ahead of that based upon what Mother Nature throws us. But it could take up to 60 days before it gets to county agriculture for them to come and then identify when they're going to come in and clear it.
okay.
So not every case do we just bring out the hammer and say, hey, you've hit this. There's a lot of homeowners we work with, and we give them phases of what they need to do. So we start with the priorities, and then we give them those phases to come into compliance, because we know that it can be quite the task for that to happen for a lot of people that are trying to do the right thing.
Okay, great. I have another question. You mentioned that there is a distinction between high fire risk days and just regular I was actually going to ask about high fire risk days, because that's what I think of when I think of, oh, the days where I got to be worried. That, do you track, how many do we have in Calabasas on average during summer months? I mean, is it something that you keep track of?
It is something we keep track of. So, as we know in Calabasas, we can probably set our calendar, our watch, and everything else, knowing that it's going to be during the months of, we'll just say July and August, it's going to be 88 to 98. The wind's going to be out of the southwest at 3 to 5 with ridgetop winds at 15 miles an hour, right? And relative humidities would be about 17 to 22%. That's routine. But when we know that we have that type of weather, we will bring resources in to augment our initial attack component. So outside those summer hot, dry days, there's also hot, dry, windy. And that, to answer your question, when we get in our Santa Ana wind events, we average around 8 per season, and that starts in October and ends in Christmas. And so I give people perception with this. Everybody that's sitting here can remember windy Halloweens and rainy Halloweens, right? So we know that we look at that wind, Santa Ana wind season starts October 1st and usually goes, now I'll extend it again, you remember cold and you remember hot and dry Thanksgivings, and the same with Christmas. So that Santa Ana wind envelope is usually from October 1st to the end of the year. And so when that happens, we do, once again, bring that workforce out here, if you will. But we average 8 red flag days a year that meets criteria. And that's outside air temperature that hits a certain temperature, wind speeds that are sustained over 25 miles an hour for 6 hours or greater, and also relative humidities that are 15% or less for 6-hour periods. So there's those thresholds, and we track that daily. But to make this answer even longer, wait, there's more. We also have, within the county, 6 forecast zones. So we track the climatology, so meaning the Antelope Valley is completely different than here. This is different than Catalina. It's different than the Santa Clarita Valley in the high country. And it's different than it is on the coastline in Malibu. So what we do is we have all these remote automated weather stations called RAS stations that just send us data. And so we can look at when we have peak drying, peak solar energy, tells the state of the fuels through these sensors so we can actually track where those vulnerabilities are. And so we look at that, then we can put it into, let's just say, the Whopper computer, and we can go through a relative risk analysis through a program called Fire Family Plus that gives us a burning index. So we can always look at what the weather values are that are actual and forecasted, and then we basically can use that fuels data, and it gives us a value. So we always know every day whether we're below average, at average, or way above average, and we use that to make an informed decision based upon actual data rather than me getting into a hot car going, oh my gosh, we better staff because it's hot. We can actually use data to subscribe to whether we do or do not need to have an augmented workforce in the area.
That's great. Thank you very much for that. I have
welcome.
one last question. There's a lot of talk during the budget meetings in Calabasas, and they're saying, oh, we need to buy more police, right? If I'm not mistaken, there's no way to buy more fire protection. People might say, well, why does Calabasas only have 2, stations? Why don't they buy another one? But that's nothing to do with the city of Calabasas. That's a determination that is made by the fire department. And I don't think people really have an understanding of how that is determined, what the criteria are. And along with that, if you could give people an idea of, because I know response time, how quickly can you get someplace, is certainly one of the factors. And if you can give us an idea of what is the typical response time and what are the areas, what's the longest response time, depending on how far away you are.
Right, so that is a great question. So if everything is normal, that your firefighters are sitting in the station and the bell goes off, we try to meet from the time that we get dispatched to meet the need within 6 minutes. And that's realistic, because you can't compare some of the places in Calabasas that has a Calabasas address if you have to get off of Mulholland as compared to just going from Station 68 just here to the Commons. It's just, you can't. So we have, when we get drawn down on resources, we move people up. And so we have a surge, what we do here. But it's very hard to say, well, how fast are you going to get there? Because there's so many components to that, like traffic. Well, I'm just talking about the 101 freeway coming up the Calabasas grade, so you have to take Moreau, or that's it. Or you have to take the 101. So there's a lot of different challenges we're facing to get to emergency response. And to answer the question on fire protection, if you will, which is all risk, you have 2 stations that are within the city limits of Calabasas. But remember, we have 12 stations in the area, and actually 13 if we count the Lake Manor station. So we can move those resources around how we want to meet the needs. So if we look at the city of Calabasas, does it have adequate fire protection? If you were just the city of Calabasas with 2 stations, the answer would be no. But you have 176 stations available to you with a large air force and hand crews and bulldozers and lifeguards, everything. So you get the whole package. So could we always use more fire stations across the country? The answer is yes. Could we use more firefighters across the country or here? The answer is yes. But the customer service delivery that we provide the city of Calabasas, we have really, really good response times and outcomes based upon that customer service delivery we're doing now.
Good.
Really
and,
do.
and I'm not questioning any of them. I just want people to hear it.
Right, and one other thing is you mentioned is on how, so City of Calabasas does not pay us directly for fire protection services. That's all done through pass-through monies. So you're not a fee-for-service city. If you're a fee-for-service city, you can say, hey, we want this is what we're going to pay, and this is what you shall get. But with it being a contract city with the pass-through monies, it's all part of the tax base, and yeah, it's all on property tax. So there's a special tax. Mm-hmm.
That's good.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so actually you get a lot of bang for your buck.
Thank you very much. I appreciate
Yeah,
it.
you're welcome.
Norma.
No, I have no questions.
Thank you.
No questions, thank you.
No, you don't. Come on, you got one. I know you have one. Give me one.
Oh,
Just give me one. I know you're kicking one around.
Okay, so I will ask one. What? I'll go from a youth perspective. Anything about, outreach, education that the youth can do to kind of educate their families, educate their parents about how they can prepare for fires in terms of having the proper equipment, fire extinguishers, kits, things like that in the case of an emergency?
So a lot of the education could be given to parents and families by research by you. So if you go, hey, I looked at this, and you can go to the mighty Google and look up fire extinguishers, you could look at exiting, all that stuff. Or how about an internal plan that you have a family plan of if you have a major earthquake, and ask mom and dad, where's our meeting spot? Ooh. So having that family plan in place, that's a family cohesion component that can come from any of our youth to be informed and start early, because then having that plan starting at an early age will compound as you get older. Then you'll start that internal plan with your family? That's a great question. I knew you had one. Be involved early.
Okay.
We found the defensible space information. We like to just let everybody know if anybody has some defensible space issues, such as what Joe mentioned on Parkmore. The phone number for the public out there is area code 626-969-2375, and that's the Los Angeles County Fire Department Dispensable Space Unit. Again, that's 626-969-2375. And there's also an email, and the email is fire-defensible space, all one word, at fire.lacounty.gov.
Perfect. Thank you, Chief.
Thank you very much for the information.
You're welcome.
I wish you a very quiet summer.
Yeah, me
Um,
too.
And
And can we get a snake icon on your reports? It keeps getting bigger.
Yeah?
Because I noticed that.
Okay, we'll do it.
I'm hoping you win.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
thank you very
Appreciate it.
much.
Thank
Have a
you.
great
you.
summer. Okay. Now, next up is the committee reports, and I will start with Brian over on fire and emergency prep.
Thank you. Fire and emergency prep, I go back to EPIC and the activities that we're doing both independently and in partnership with the city. EPIC was created to be an outreach and education platform. And on the outreach side, we're producing at least one newsletter each month that's going out to almost 2,200 contacts. And it changes from month to month on based upon current events. We also created an EPIC smartphone app, and some of these issues, Assistant Chief, that you're mentioning, like family planning and such, are embedded in that app, which is free to download. So far, we've had about 400 downloads of that app, and signs are that it is being used, opened up and used. And we're continuing to do home ignition zone evaluation assessments. That will continue as we keep reaching out to people and connecting with them and explaining to them the need for home ignition zone and ember-resistant space. That's all I've got.
Okay. Did you want me to add about succession plan? Another part of the EPIC is creating a succession plan so that all the hard work that everybody's doing up here is part of the EPIC Council continues in the future. So another member of the group and myself are currently in the process of developing that succession plan, and it will be presented within the next 30 days.
Great.
Joe and Norma?
Excellent.
I'm going to let Joe go first.
Oh, well, like, stop me. Our subcommittee's been very busy. I'm not going to read everything because I know that Mike and Debbie's report is also going to touch on some of these things. But all I will say is that Norma and I have been enjoying working with Debbie and Mike on various projects, and we're moving them all forward. However, I do want to talk about FRS radios, and here's one in my hand. The city has been kind enough to pay for these radios, and they are available free to all Calabasas residents within the city limits. And the benefit of having an FRS radio is you will be able to receive reliable, vetted information, which, as Assistant Chief Smith pointed out, is very important to have in these situations. And Epic Echo is partnering with the city, and we are providing the radios through distribution events, and we are providing training and ongoing engagement as well. So we encourage everybody to go to the Epic website. The address is www.epic-fsc.com, and go to the contact page and request a community radio through that source. And we will continue to have distribution events in the future, and we hope to get as many of these out into people's hands as possible. We had a very successful distribution event just on the 13th of this month. We expect to have them at least every month. And we've gotten more than 100 boxed radio sets out into the hands of Calabasas residents. One thing that we have noticed is we've got 2 zones within the evacuation zones that we don't have many requests coming from. And we're taking a look at that, and it's been pointed out that Viewpoint School is in one of those zones. And we think it's very important that we reach out to the local schools and find out what their plans are and get these radios in their hands if they don't have other means for communication to begin with. So we'll take a look at that. We'll also take a look at other areas where they may not be as populated, which might be the reason that we're not getting as many requests. But we want to make sure that everybody in Calabasas is covered and has some means to be able to receive this information. And now I'll throw it over to Norma.
Thank you, Joe. My working with Joe on FRS radio has been a real treat, as well as working on Firewise. We're working with Epic. Joe and I are working with Epic on Firewise. And just today, I had an email blast sent out to our community to remind them, and I thought of Chief Smith's unified messaging. We need to provide unified messaging on Firewise, especially since we're trying to create Firewise communities throughout our city. Our blast today was really great because our mayor, in her weekly newsletter, really is an advocate for Firewise communities. So we want to build on that. We also have within our community, we're going to have some Zoom information sessions that I'm hoping Joe and maybe Brian from Epic will join so that we can get the information out there. I have not yet started a board. I'm hoping to get some interest from our community, and I actually have about 4 people who've contacted me separately, but now I need to put them together. So we have moved forward on that, and it is an interesting challenge, just like beginning the FRS radios was an interesting challenge. And I'm looking forward to that. And I am waiting to find out about our CERT program, and I know we'll learn about that in just a few minutes. And that's it for me.
Thank you. Jay?
Yeah, so I have a few things that I'll touch on. So I'll first start off on planning a collaboration event between the Public Safety Commission and the Mayor's Youth Council. So I've gotten into contact with Mayor Weintraub and some of the members of the Public Safety Commission, and I'm going to be presenting the idea of an event. Obviously, we're keeping it very broad now because there could be so much we could do, right? Because the youth demographic hasn't really been touched yet in terms of fire safety and fire preparedness, but there's a lot of potential. So I think, education plus actual service work is something that we could also do, like training, service work, things like that. And I kind of want to work on, obviously with a new public student commissioner, work on developing a path forward for this year to really increase student engagement. I really like the capabilities of Epic as well to do that. So I'd like to partner kind of with Epic to kind of grow the youth demographic and the youth aspect from that point, as well as for the FRS radios. I can help reach out to schools and things like that in the district as well to kind of help implement that, as well as following up with the school districts about new safety measures that they want to implement, such as ID scanners to help make sure that students are accounted for throughout the school day, and things of that sort. But yeah, that's pretty much all, kind of just focusing on building a plan on how to increase youth engagement throughout this school year.
Thank you, Jay. On crime and law enforcement, Matt's not here, so I'll give a very brief report. I said a lot of it during your Deputy Mateo's speech, but it's important that, and I'll say it again, see something, say something. I talked about the cameras in the bushes, be aware of that. I talked to Michael before coming on here, and they've actually had several meetings with the different security companies throughout the city on a monthly basis?
Bi-monthly.
Bi-monthly, which is great because that provides us more information between the groups that are running the city with their security teams to talk to each other, that not to be afraid because there's so much going on in the city that all the ears that we can get, they're part of the spokes for us on that. And you're going to talk about the gates and how all that went, so I won't go into that. And so with that, I'm going to thank this group up here. They're a hard-working group, and I appreciate, Matt and I both appreciate everything they've done. We're sorry to be losing Ryan. I want to thank him. I hope he's listening somewhere out there for all the work that he did as he's graduating and moving on to college, which is wonderful. And with that, I'm going to throw it over to Mike and Debbie to go over their reports.
Thank you. First thing I'm going to go over is the Resident Emergency Preparedness Guide that Norma and Joe diligently helped us with. And the guidebook is almost ready to send out, to mail out to the residents of Calabasas. It should be out by the end of July. Funding for that was through the Santa Monica Mountains Conservancy Fire Grant. And it's, like I say, it's almost ready. We got one more insert to send out, to put it in there, and then we can send it out. So I'm very excited about that.
And it's not just the guide booklet, but there's also 2 maps, Know Your Circuit, Know Your Zone, and there's a magnet that people are going to be able to put on their refrigerator with some emergency preparedness tips. Also, Debbie's included 2 wallet cards, one Know Your Circuit and also Know Your Zone. So this is more like a packet, not just the guide. And the guide also has a special insert for Epic and be able to use a QR code to get on the Epic app as well. So we're in this together, and we hit them with paper, we hit them with iPhone and Android, and we hit them any way we can communicate with everybody to help them get ready. Next, I think Joe mentioned the FRS radios. The city supported the handout of the FRS radios, just to let Chief Smith know they're not talking on any fire channels. Chief Smith, they're talking between one another and they're listening, so making sure that happens.
Next is the mobile EOC trailer. We had it here at City Hall today on display, and it was also on display on June 8th at the Be Prepared Safety Fair, and it's currently being stored at the Sheriff's Station. So we put together a public safety video, so we'll get that out soon.
This resource will be used in case, God forbid, if this building weren't usable where our EOC is. Also, it can be taken anywhere in the area to be used as an EOC. It's also been offered to the fire department and the sheriff department for their use if needed. We don't want this sitting in the parking lot at the sheriff's station if it's needed. So we're gonna utilize this valuable piece of equipment. Getting into Norma's favorite topic, let's talk about CERT. I think I counted about 10 documents we worked on. We worked on these documents with her and Joe for months. Took a lot of best practices out from neighboring cities, including LA City, who everybody knows started CERT back in the 80s. But I think with these documents in place, they've gone to the city attorneys approved them. It's going to lay a good foundation for starting the program. So our next steps are to get the list of folks that are already certified and get that list, and then do some outreach, and then we'll schedule a meeting sometime in September to build the team. We need committee members, people that are going to volunteer for the 5 committee seats, including the coordinator, and then Debbie will be the program manager with my assistance. And there ought to be a CERT liaison on the Public Safety Commission as well. That would fit nicely in with CERT as well. But we have a lot of big plans for CERT coming up, and we're looking forward to utilizing our most valuable resource out there, our community. So it's exciting. It took a little while to get it ready, but this way, I'd just say that this will give us a structure and an organization by which we can actually field a successful team. And we look forward to doing that. Any questions on CERT real quick, or do you want to ask at the end? Okay.
I have something. We also have a hybrid CERT class coming up on August 10th. It's an all-day class. Before that, the fire department would like you to go through and read all the online material before that class. And then there's another follow-up class on August 13th from 5 to 8 p.m. at the community center. So I hope more people can sign up. I will put some information out on that for you.
Debbie, I have a question about the training. Will there be a Zoom training class held at any time?
I don't think so.
No,
Just
but
checking.
the way there's a hybrid class, and then these days are supposed to be hands-on. So you should have taken the hybrid class ahead of time, and to sign up for these 2 hands-on classes, because there's supposed to be some hands-on as part of CERT.
I think that's a good approach. I did the RCD training for home hardening evaluations, and that's the way I did it. I took a look at the material online, then I went out for the hands-on. And it gives you the opportunity of stopping it, backing it up, taking a look at it, which if you're sitting in a classroom, you don't have the opportunity to do so. And also, you're able to do it from your own home, that aspect. So I'm glad to see that you got 11 people signed up so far. I hope we get a lot more. Thank you.
Yeah, I took just for giggles, I took the CERT class, the online class, in the past month or 2. So I kind of have an idea. It's been a long time since I've had CERT or taught CERT. So it's a good class. It's held through through CSTI, the Cal OES. And also, I believe it's a college out of Utah that has, is it the?
I think so.
But you can go on to the CSTI website and take the class up there if you even want to refresh it. So it's good.
Before we leave that, can you specifically tell people where that is, where they can access signing up for this class?
The online class?
Yeah.
It'd be the CSTI website, training website under Cal OES. CSTI stands for California Specialized Training Institute.
And it's under the Cal OES?
Yes.
Okay.
And you could Google CSTI as well. And then you'll have to log in. You'll have to create an account and log in, but there's a lot of great just online training. And recently we had all of the city staff do EOC training. You can go through and do the basic ICS courses. It's a great website, and it doesn't cost anything to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next is the FEMA Public Assistance Grant Program. We are still waiting for reimbursement from the January 2023 winter storms. They owe us about $500,000. And I'm currently working on the February 2024 storm damages, and that's where we're at with FEMA. Any questions?
Getting into training, we recently conducted a tabletop exercise in April for city employees on debris flows. As everybody knows, we had a lot of rain this past year, so we do fire all the time. We did debris flow recently with staff. And our next exercise is going to be April 12th and 13th. August 12th and 13th, where we're going to do another fire. And it'll be 2 days. We're going to have city staff and EPIC personnel with us here, especially in the communications and management sections of the EOC. And we're going to throw some problems at everybody and help them problem solve a little bit, get used to working with one another. We're going to exercise the FRS radios, I hope, and going forward in that network that we're going to create out there and show the benefit of the investment. And going on to security gates, on May 30th of this year, at the end of, it's taken, I don't know, a long time, but we had a very, very successful exercise with let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of our HOAs in the Parkway Calabasas corridor with their security gates. And that's the security gates in the back, not the ones that are staffed in the front. And these are emergency security gates, usually used for alternate traffic flow during emergencies, including evacuations. And we had the opportunity of working with Allied Universal, the security company for the HOAs, and conducted the exercise. And I think the staff report's in everybody's folder, but long story short is everything went really well. Will it go as fast? In reality, I can't tell you for sure, because the nice thing about Allied Universal is they brought in extra resources in to handle all these different gates at the same time. And but the good news is they have the capability to do that. And that's one advantage they have, is they can bring in extra folks, much like Chief Smith said with County Fire. We only have 2 fire stations, but there's 170 something right behind them. And you just keep calling for more if you need it. And this gates took a long time, and I plan every year in June we're going to do another gate opening exercise and get it timed. And I think most of the HOAs were very appreciative of the collaboration. Hazard mitigation plan, the COGS hazard mitigation plan is currently with FEMA now for final review. It expires in August, so I hope it gets done in time. The good news is we don't have any grants that are pending based on the hazard mitigation plan. You have to have a current one, but it should be done in the near future. And those hazard mitigation plans are good for 5 years. And they are a backbone or a foundation by which people can, apply for grant money for resiliency and redundancy and mitigation efforts in the various cities or regions that they have plans.
Well done.
Yeah.
The next plan is the Continuity of Operations Plan, or we call it the COOP. It was completed in 2023, and we are going to exercise the plan. We were going to do it in June, but that has been rescheduled to October 17th during our shakeout drill, which will be an earthquake drill, and we'll see how the city will operate during an earthquake.
And finally, Firewise. I know Brian and I have been working closely together. We have a public-private partnership with Epic. City of Calabasas is partnering to roll out Firewise to our HOAs and our other communities as we need to. I've attended 2 community-wide risk assessments to kind of get a feel for what forestry looks for. And without going through the whole process, it'll involve an application at the beginning and then identify board members. Once board members are identified, then a community-wide risk assessment is done by a qualified entity, which would be, right now it's forestry, county fire. There are going to be opportunities for folks to sign up to get certified as a qualified entity. There's a number of us that are going to take a class in August to be a qualified entity. And what we plan on doing, and Brian can chime in, is we, Epic and the city, are going to help our communities in Calabasas do these community-wide risk assessments. And then with that, there's also, you have to develop a 3-year action plan. So based on the risk assessment, you'll identify what needs to be done, whether it's vents, it's defensible space, hardening the homes, and then you have to develop a 3-year action plan. Now, what you can do ahead of time is you have to have a certain amount of, if you have 20 people, 20 houses involved, or 20 folks, you'll have a number of hours that you have to calculate, and then there's a dollar amount with that. Well, you have to then show that you've done a certain amount of clearing, but communities will be able to use landscaping invoices and such that your community does. So going forward, we're looking forward and working together to educate our communities and help them become Firewise, because even though everybody's honed in on the insurance part of it right now, but there's really a bigger picture to this, and that's making your house safer and your neighbor's house safer. And most of all, the city is going to invest in a consultant going forward by which we'll have a Firewise, a Calabasas Firewise website. We will roll out training to the communities on how to become Firewise and maintain their Firewise. Right now, there's only one community in the city that's Firewise, and that's Westridge. And we've spoken to the individual there that's doing an amazing job. But we talk about legacy and redundancy, and that's what we have to ensure with Firewise as well. There has to be some redundancy there, because you have to keep reporting on an annual basis on how much clearing you're doing to maintain your status in Firewise. So this program's been around for a while. I think it's being embraced more now for a number of reasons. Mm-hmm. But we're really excited about it. On August 14th, we're going to bring a budget amendment to the council to approve for the consultant. Now, the other thing this consultant will provide Epic and the city is a records management system by which the communities can use, and it'll be pretty plug and play, where they'll be able to just log in and put their whatever they've done in, and it'll populate. And we're working on trying to get it in a format where it can go directly into the Firewise application. That hasn't been done yet, but that's something we'll push for. And we're just trying to work together to make it as easy as possible for our communities to achieve this designation and help one another make their homes safer. So anything else to chime in, Brian? Or
Yeah, just the benefits of being a Firewise community, first and foremost, is it encourages individuals to protect their homes, to home harden their particular homes. The second benefit is that it's a community-based program. So as you're doing individual homes, you're making the community as a whole safer from wildfire spread. The fact that there are potential insurance mitigation or reduction offers is, frankly, yeah, that would be great if it happens, but we're not going to count on it. The importance, keeping the focus on individual protection leading to more protection and getting the community as a whole involved in that. We've got 82, is it 82 HOAs?
52.
52, okay. I knew there was a 2 in there. 52 HOAs in the city and untold number of communities on the west side that could also be grouped together to become Firewise communities. So there's a lot to be done there, and but it needs to be done. It has to be done. We need to protect the city, and this is a good thing to build on. So Epic is enthusiastic and excited about partnering with the city and pushing this forward.
And if I may add something, as I've been trying to build in my own community, I find that education really is key. Many of our homeowners have no idea what home hardening is. They have no idea what defensible space is. So we have a big job to do just to educate. And that's why I'm going to have the Zoom, and hopefully Brian will be able to come, because it starts with the very basic, just education.
Joe.
Thank you. Not to oversell this point, as Brian has pointed out, but in fact, the mitigation discounts are state law now. The devil is always in the details. I don't know what the details are in terms of the criteria, but that's certainly something that we were going to provide to people when we do presentations on the benefits of Firewise. So it's good to see that that's the direction that the state is going, and that they have finally put some teeth, I guess, in the promise that this might come one day. So it's good news. Let's see how good news when we check out exactly what the criteria are. Thank you.
And the state recently recognized the city of Calabasas, one of only 11 cities in the state, as a fire risk reduction community. That's also in the Public Resources Code, a requirement that insurance companies consider reductions in insurance as well as Firewise.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you
you
very
for taking
much.
the leadership on this, Mike and Debbie.
Thanks.
Thank
Well,
you.
together we're gonna get it done.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about it too.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Okay, I want to circle back. Debbie, are we going to do anything with the student commissioner?
I think we'll wait till next time.
Okay, all right.
We could, but all I ask is let's try to find a way to find places for anybody who wants to be involved in this process to be involved in it one way or the other. I know we've had fabulous student commissioners this year. Jay is a house on fire,
Yeah.
and Ryan has been as well. So anytime anybody steps up and says, yeah, I like this idea, I want to get involved, I think it behooves us in the city to try and find a place for them. Thanks.
I will tell you, piggybacking on what Joe just said, I've been sitting up here on this diocese for a number of years, and this is one of the first years that we've had such fabulous student members who are willing to step out and do their part, and both you and Ryan deserve a lot of credit for that, and we appreciate that. The future agenda items, right now, really the only thing that we have out there still is the Explorer program and the J-Team. The Appreciation Luncheon and Teen Court are on hold. Is there anything else that we want to add to the future agenda items?
No, I don't think so, but the efforts that Jay was talking about earlier, where we are attempting to find ways to partner with the Mayor's Youth Council, is certainly something that's going to come back to us.
Okay. Are there any other comments, questions? Okay. I think that we are ready to adjourn, and I would like to adjourn this meeting in memory of my sister-in-law, Gail Boucher. So until I will see you all again, August 28th, 2024.